30 days out, man. Like what's happening right now in the NFL? 30 days out from a draft, Mike.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but the whole quarterback thing is overshadowing everything right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in the middle of pro days, and for instance, this week, Penn State has theirs. People want to see Abdul Carter run despite the problem with his foot.
Right.
His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, has said he's going to run. So Jaylen Walker from Georgia, he did not work out at the combine, and he said he had a thigh thing. So now he and one of his teammates, who's another potential first-round pick, are working out, I believe, April 17th in Athens. So, there's all this pro day conversation and who's running and what are they running, but it's kind of overshadowed by quarterback roulette in the NFL.
All right. So, and that's, I imagine when Rodgers makes his choice, that's when a lot of this, as you said, the carousel that's looming over, because that might turn the Giants into potentially a trade partner, a couple of spots up. Cleveland will maybe get Russ if they don't just stick with Pickett. Like, I'm wondering what you think is the holdup that you say is lurking above all this, Mike. What's your opinion of that?
Yeah, the Rodgers thing is pretty amazing, and you can go back to Brett Favre, and he didn't sign until the middle of August with Minnesota, and obviously A-Rod certainly remembers all of that.
Yes.
And I'm guessing again, knowing A-Rod a little bit, but he's a very smart guy. I think he's got a bad taste in his mouth, and he wants to finish the right way. So, from what's available today, that would mean Pittsburgh. However, I'm sure being a smart guy and doing his due diligence with his agents, they're kind of like, what are the chances you're drafting a first-round pick? Am I your starter? If you take a first-round pick at 21, am I going to lose my job halfway through the season? I think Aaron's very cognizant of his place in history and had a bad taste in his mouth the last couple of years and wants to rectify that. So I find that really intriguing, and I find even more intriguing that, really teams are holding spots for him. And, the Giants signed Jameis Winston, but, he signed for backup money, and that's what he is. He might electrify you here and there, but he's a backup quarterback. So, the Giants are in the game. Cleveland has a general manager and a head coach who I respect highly. I think they're both really intelligent men. They've been very quiet. What are they? They're not going in week one with Kenny Pickett under center. So, if we assume Tennessee's taking Cam Ward, the 2-3 documentary starts. And it could go so many different ways, Rich, that it kind of blows my mind up. I kind of look at it and go, okay, if Shedeur Sanders goes too, regardless to who, the Giants moving up or Cleveland sticking, if Shedeur went too, then effectively Jackson Dart is next up, and teams are going to start to panic a little bit. Pittsburgh's going to go, is he going to get to us? Does New Orleans take Jackson Dart at 9? If Shedeur slides down 6, 7, 9, anywhere in there, Jackson Dart gets pushed back. Pittsburgh feels better. But the fact that teams are kind of letting Aaron dictate that without somehow covering themselves, and that's why I look at Cleveland is really intriguing. They're going to set the pace of this draft. If they can stick and pick, and if it's Shedeur, great. If it's not, Abdul Carter, is that everybody's talking about? Will they trade back one pick and let the Giants come up and get a quarterback? And Rich, there's one other kind of wild card within the whole concept here.
Okay.
And that is the head coach and GM with the number 2 pick, Cleveland, and the head coach and GM with the number 3 pick, the Giants, are both on the hot seat. And if you remember years ago when Aaron Rodgers was coming out and you thought I was crazy for pushing him down
to 24,
one of the main reasons I pushed him down was because teams that needed a quarterback had head coaches and GM on the hot seat, and they had to win now. So the Cleveland New York Giant predicament really intrigues me. Do you do what's best for the building, which is if you believe he's a good quarterback, the young kid, you got to take him. Now, you might be taking him for the next head coach because you're end up going to have to play a rookie quarterback. So there's just so many ramifications up. I don't remember a year where there's more quarterback ramifications, both in free agency and the draft.
All right, there's a lot that you just said, Mike Mayock, here on the Rich Eisen Show that I want to follow up on. First one, we're assuming Cam Ward goes first. I don't know of another soul out there that thinks otherwise, right? Like, why do you think this is such a general consensus that Cam Ward's going to be the first overall pick in this draft 30 days out from it, Mike?
I think his tape is better. I think there's more upside. I think teams wanted to get to know the kid. And if the kid was going to check out, then I think he was going to be the number one quarterback. I love his journey. I've never met the kid, but the fact that he came out of high school as a nothing, goes to Incarnate Word for 2 years, Washington State for 2 years, and then grabs that Miami program by the throat and takes him where he did. I love that story. So I don't think there's much doubt that Tennessee's going to take him. The only question is, will they go get a veteran backup? Will they bring in a Joe Flacco, just kind of help the kid learn? Because I don't think Will Levis, I think they'll try and move Will Levis if they make that pick.
Oh, Flacco's sitting at home right now. Somebody can go beat him to that punch. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems there's such a stasis here that we haven't seen in a while, right? I mean, Brockman told him before the show. You said what date did the trade happen for? What you said for?
It was 2 years ago. It was the Bears and Panthers, Mike. It was done on March 10th.
And here we are on March 24th, and there doesn't seem to be any movement right now. And so, if you're going to take Cam Ward, then you go get Flacco before somebody else does, because they're missing out on Rodgers, right? Like, it's kind of nuts that what we're seeing right now.
I don't disagree with any of that. And there's Flacco, there's Carson Wentz, there's potentially Ryan Tannehill, but that's kind of the, quote, cream of the crop of the veteran quarterbacks that can back up, outside of obviously Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. And I think Russell Wilson's stock has taken a significant hit, and justifiably, given what's happened since he left Seattle. The fact that Pittsburgh, he's not even their third or fourth choice, which tells you volumes about how they feel about how he played last year. So it's one of the reasons, Rich, I kind of texted you the other day, like, down the road, post June 1, after the draft, if somebody's not happy with their quarterback situation, I'm a big believer that you got to be looking at Cousins and Carr.
All right. Why? I mean, Cousins, I understand, the $10 million that just became guaranteed in 2026. The Falcons are like, that can get offset. Doesn't matter to us. We can just hold on to it. Cousins is, doesn't appear to be the type of personality that's just going to go on somebody's show like this one and try and force the situation, right? Burn it down, demand a trade, that sort of thing. Right. Maybe he will be. But why do you think Derek Carr would be an option? What gives you that indication, Mike?
Well, let's just take a step back. Both of these quarterbacks have no trade clauses. Mm-hmm. So if you put your GM cap on and you're Andrew Berry, okay, or you're Joe Shane, and all this stuff is playing out, and potentially there might be two guys out there, you got to do your homework. You got to be calling Mickey Loomis in New Orleans. You got to be calling Atlanta. And you got to do your homework in case you get shut out of the player you want. With Derek Carr, keep in mind, New Orleans restructured his contract recently. So a team that would trade for Derek would only have to pay $1.2 million, the veteran minimum, this year. And next year, he makes $40 million, but it's non-guaranteed. So if you were to trade for Derek, you get the opportunity to start a guy this year and be your bridge. If you needed him next year, he could be your bridge for a total of $41 million, $20 million a year and if you don't want him year two, you cut him with no consequences. So I kind of look at Derek Carr and I go, okay, if New Orleans was willing to move him, point number one, okay, and if Derek was willing to go to a team like, say, Cleveland, that's a year removed from being an 11-win team with a quarterback-friendly coach who won 11 games with 5 quarterbacks in 1 year, so maybe if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm talking to Mickey Loomis and saying, Mick, would you move him? What would it take? Because it's a $1.2 million contract with Deshaun Watson making all that money. To me, it's a phone call that has to be made. And if you get shut out, at the end of the day, if you're Cleveland and you get shut out, and again, Kevin and Andrew are under some pressure, Derek Carr can step in day one and compete. So I think Derek Carr is a real object of potential desire down the road for somebody getting shut out.
Certainly if Jackson Dart goes 9, right? Certainly if something like that happens. Now, they might be more prone to just say, we're going to go with this kid. Although I did hear from some folks, Mike, maybe you did too, that they did like Spencer Rattler. They did like what they saw in him last year.
Here's what I tell you about Rattler. He went in the 5th round a year ago.
Yep.
I had a second-day grade on him. I thought he was a 2nd or 3rd round at worst. He's a twitchy kid with a big arm. He's athletic. Do I think he got the best opportunity to compete last year in a fair situation? Probably not. Typical rookie kind of year. There's some talent in Spencer Rattler. And keep in mind that the 26 next year, quarterback class a year from now should be much more talented. So if you're New Orleans and you move Derek Carr for a draft pick, you've got more of an ability to move up next year with extra ammunition.
And lastly, before I let you go, you had mentioned earlier the Penn State Pro Day. Is this really a significant box to check on Carter's foot to see him? Like, is this, because, pro days usually are just, obviously they're set up for the kids to look good and succeed, but is this a genuine concern? Because I know there are some other edge rushers that maybe aren't as highly touted as this kid, but how big is this pro day in your estimation, Mike?
I would tell you 2 things. One, I might be the only guy out there that had a higher grade on Jaylen Walker than Abdul Carter, and I'll stand by that grade. And but by the way, I had big grades on both of them, top 5 grades on both of them.
Sure.
But to answer your direct question, Abdul Carter, teams are worried about foot injuries and stress fractures, and they want to see X-rays and they want to see you move. They're the kind of things that can come back and bite you. I think Drew Rosenhaus, the agent, has been through this, seen it, done that, and he's going to put the kid in the best opportunity to succeed. If he goes out there and runs well, looks good, I think everybody's just going to go, hey, he's fine. We can fix the foot after the year if there's a problem. So I do think it's a situation where he's got to show up and show out.
All right, I got to ask you the follow-up on Walker. You say you had a better grade on him than you do Abdul Carter. Like, why?
I put the tape on, the Georgia tape on Jaylen Walker, and he's an off-the-ball linebacker at 243 pounds, and my jaw dropped watching him run. His twitch, his speed, his quickness, his change of direction. But what really intrigued me is on sub packages. Rich, they played him everywhere from the A-gap over the center all the way out wide as a pass rusher. And I have in my notes all over the place for Jaylen Walker, every tape I watched, I have Micah Parsons. He reminds me so much of Micah Parsons when he came out of Penn State, because he was an off-the-ball linebacker that they used exactly the same in sub situations. And the bottom line for Micah Parsons and Jaylen Walker, to me, when you go, okay, what does this kid do best? Even though he was an off-the-ball linebacker, what he did best was rush the quarterback. And I think the only limitation on this kid's 21 years old. He's a 3rd-year junior. He's got all kinds of upside. I think the only limitation is a defensive coordinator with lack of creativity, because this kid can play all over the ball. I think he's the next level linebacker, edge rusher in the NFL. And if you got to chase Jaden Daniels all over the place, this is the kind of kid I want doing it, whether it's off the edge, which is what I think he's going to be, or as an off-the-ball linebacker.
Man, okay. So, I mean, it does appear he could be available in the back half of the first 10, right? Like it's unless somebody looks at the medical and makes a decision. You know what I mean? Like that's why I bring it up. And I know that might not be fair to Abdul Carter, but
right.
I mean,
you and I can't control Abdul's medical, and I'm sure he'll check out. But
right.
All I'm trying to say is there are a lot of edge rushers that are really good in this class. But this kid, Jaylen Walker, is so twitched up, quick, tough, relentless that, and I don't know the kid. I've never met the kid. But at the end of the day, off his tape, I bet on his upside all day long as a top 5 pick.
Mike Mayock, you the man. Love chatting as always. We'll chat again next week. Thanks again, Mike.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
You got it. That's Mike Mayock, everybody, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.